Yo, what is up guys? DungeonRunnerTank here, and the video today is going to be about Timelords. One thing I can say about them is that for the most part they're not really all that good because of their limitations, but they're actually pretty good in YuGiOhs. So for example, let's say you end up going first, even though typically for YuGiOhs you don't want to go first. So let's say this is your opening hand. Activate Tanky. You can get a search. Search out a -3. And then with Time Maiden, if you control no monsters, you can just special summon Time Maiden Tribute to search out a Time Lord card with 0 attack. And the other effect, and with Time Maiden's other effect, you can banish her, special summon a Time Lord from your deck. So whenever you add a Time Lord to your hand, you can add one of the good Time Lords like this, or you can have more of like a bluff Time Lord like this. And I consider this a bluff Time Lord because all it does is burn your opponent for 1,000 damage. So in YuGiOhs, you could literally just normal summon this, burn your opponent for 1,000, set your cards, and do that. And basically your opponent won't be able to really attack you or do anything to you as long as this is on the field, unless if they have a way around it. And then during the standby phase, it'd shuffle back into your deck. So I'll go ahead and go with the plays. I'll add this to my hand. Set the torrential, normal summon this. During your opponent's turn, they'll draw a card and they'll take 1,000 damage from this. If they bring out a big field or whatever, activate this and also have a Ghost Ogre. And then during my turn, standby phase, this will shuffle back into the deck. And then I could go with my YuGiOh plays, go into an XYZ. But another play I could do, depending on if they have a bunch of monsters or a bunch of spells. In this case, it'd probably be a bunch of spells because of the torrential. But you can banish Time Maiden and special summon this, or even the other Time Lord card, or any Time Lord card with 0 attack. If you special summon Zaphion, if they set a bunch of back row and maybe you just don't want to lose your monsters to back row, you can attack into it. If they don't have a strike or any response, it'll shuffle all of their back row back into their deck. So they can potentially neg really hard. And another option you can do is that if it's not a back row heavy deck, or you think their back row is going to suck, or if they have a bunch of monsters, you can bring out this guy. And then you can, even with YuGiOhs, normal summon these. And then you can attack with these, attack with him, and all monsters will return to the hand, and your opponent will get burned for 300 for each monster. So that would be 600 right there. So that would be almost like cowboying your opponent, especially with YuGiOhs. Now Time Lords as a deck by themselves, for the most part, isn't really that great. When it comes to YuGiOhs, they're actually pretty decent. And there's also potential in them actually being like decent side deck cards. Like you could run an engine that's kind of like this. You could even run Fullest Burial and put Time Maiden in the graveyard, banish, get rid of all your opponent's monsters or spells and traps. The only drawback is that with Time Maiden's banishing effect, you won't be able to special summon any other monsters for the rest of the turn. So basically, in just normal summon. So in a deck like YuGiOhs, especially since they bounce back to your hand, it's actually pretty good. But there is potential that this could actually be in people's side decks in one day in the future, or at least with certain decks, especially if YuGiOhs. Otherwise, the Time Lords, for the most part, aren't really that great because there's just too many drawbacks. Because you just normal summon them, and it's like you have to control no monsters and everything. And sometimes they can actually slow you down. But there's been times when I've been able to actually get them off, specifically if you're Senju's. I think it has pretty good synergy if you're Senju's. Especially since you can also run a small kaiju engine, so you can just kaiju your opponent, bounce it back to hand with comma 1. But otherwise, Time Lords do actually have some potential. Once again, mainly in Yosenju's, but one day we might actually see this in people's side decks, or even like people running a small Time Lord engine. If anything, mainly for this guy, just to get rid of their opponent's field, and possibly even the other guy in order to just burn your opponent for 1,000 damage. Because if you can pull that off a few times or towards the end of the game in clutch situations, you know, you can actually win the game. It's kind of like a cowboy. Deals 1,000 damage whenever your opponent draws a card, only once per turn. So draw phase, draw, they get burned for 1,000. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any more ideas for future videos, let me know. Peace out.